Welcome to another episode of Chaos Daily. My name is Chris Sarda. Hopefully you got to listen to the main show that we recorded and posted yesterday, the Chaotic Sports Show, along with Angelo Sorboro. If you listen to that show, you know that I said that I plan to do a few more Chaos Daily episodes, so that's what we're doing here. This is, so basically Chaos Daily is just something short and sweet for just basic sports news, something to listen to on the way back home or on the way to work or whenever. So, big day yesterday. It's always a big day when the NFL starts up. We, for the last, as far as I can remember, at least half decade, maybe more, we are starting on a Thursday. This year we get a single game. It is Atlanta and Philadelphia, the two teams that represented the NFC in the Super Bowl over the last 2 years. Despite their recent success, more Philadelphia because they actually beat the Patriots and less Atlanta because they fell apart. There's a lot of questions about both teams coming into the season. And this game sort of exposed those questions. You see a lot of highlights. You see a lot of reasons, certain players why that have contributed to why the teams have had success last year and the year before. But at the same time, it was very sloppy football. There was 28 penalties I counted. It's the most for Atlanta. I think they had 15 since like 1999. And overall, it was just a real sloppy game. And it's strange because I know that the referees are the NFL through the referees are trying to change certain things to make the catch rule. I mean, just let people have those catches that are close. You know, I'm a Packer fan, but even though I think that for the rule that Dez Bryant catch wasn't a catch, I think it should be a catch. I think the rules, should be made clear so that catches like that and the Megatron catch from a year before that should be catches. So now that catches are easier, and they seem to be in this game letting, close PI calls go, holding and interference calls, or letting those sort of go. Yet somehow there were still 25, 28 penalties in the game. And I'm not ready to hang the refs yet, like, we do so often as podcasters or reporters or whatever, or fans. But I'm not ready to do it yet because I think that probably these teams were just playing sloppy and definitely like some first week blues going on. So the jury's still out for me on the refs and what they're letting go and if they're making catches easier. We did move a little bit too far over the last few years into this pro offense, just a lot of offense that has made the game sort of weird, especially the quarterback position, which is like an all-in position now. You just got to hope that your quarterback stays healthy, and then you have a chance, And it's just so rare that you get something like a Nick Foles being a backup and then him being able to, take the reins for the 5 or 6 games after. So the jury's still out. My opinion is that just the Eagles and the Falcons just look really sloppy. And it's basically on them more than the refs so far. As far as the catches, I'm glad because there were a couple catches that were could have been close, and they let them and they called them catches. And I'm happy for that because, we have one of the elite players, offensive players, and the elite receivers in the league. We got to see him play last night, Julio Jones. And, he had an amazing game, no TDs, no touchdowns. So if you're a fantasy player, he probably only did so for you. But over 100 yards passing, he got a bunch of catches. Hopefully you play in a points per catch league. And he looked great. And basically it looked like Matt Ryan just knew he had to go to him sometimes. And Julio Jones is that good. So long as he's not as long as he's not huffing and puffing and not taking, 5 catches straight all the time, I think that Matt Ryan knows that Julio's there and Julio's an option. And he made some beautiful catches, had some beautiful yardage after the catch. And for a minute there, I thought Matt Ryan might have been hurt, because to me he looked like he was underthrowing. And what it really looked like to me is the year that Brett Favre was in the Jets, and he was playing through a torn bicep that he didn't realize that he had, and he just didn't have as much spin on the ball. But then later in the game, especially that ending drive, he looked fine to me. He looked like, it looked like there was some muscle on the ball. So, I mean, it was probably just that inconsistent Matt Ryan play that we're really used to seeing. We know what he can peak at. The 2016 MVP is what he can peak at. But then the other 10 years of his career, or 9 years of his career, have been, up and down, where sometimes it looks great and sometimes a little inconsistent. He's still one of the elite quarterbacks in the league, because there's just not that many quarterbacks in the league. But you do see why he's not in that top tier, even though he can match it sometimes. Another player I want to point out, because the Eagles didn't look so great either. Nelson Aguilar had a bunch of catches. He had the first few catches. As soon as they got Zach Ertz going, he looked okay. It was Ajayi that kept getting into the end zone, though, and that, I think, is going to turn out to be one of their best picks. I don't think Ajayi is that elite level running back of the Bells or the Gurleys, but I think he's right there as far as getting the job done and doing what needs to be done. He did find the end zone twice yesterday, even though I think probably the receivers, were playing a little bit better. They were catching things thrown at them. I know Aguilar's yards per catch probably don't look good, but he got a lot of balls thrown at him. He was catching them. He's sort of become the number one there. We'll see what happens when Alshon Jeffrey comes back. But on defense, Fletcher Cox just looked great. He just looked so intelligent. And I almost didn't talk about, I put notes here that skip it if not, because they actually talked about him a lot during the game. But it was he's just a real magnificent player. And I don't know that I've ever noticed it, or maybe he just had a great game, but just a great, ear for the game. It doesn't look like the game is too fast for him. It looks like he knows what's going on. He'll make a choice. To let other people get a tackle just so he can block a lane, things like that. And he did it a few times, and he had at least one sack that comes to mind, taking Matt Ryan down. At the moment, it seemed like the sack was important, but I think they got a first down right after that. But anyway, Fletcher Cox is another guy I just wanted to point out. If you had to give the game ball to someone, I guess it would be Ajayi, because he went in twice. But it felt like, Fletcher Cox, Nelson Aguilar, and Julio Jones were the ones really contributing, even though they didn't get scores. One thing that contributed, much in the same way that it did in the Super Bowl, was they ran that Philly special again. This time it was Aguilar throwing it to Nick Foles. And I don't know, it just makes me smile. I just want to mention it. It's a trick play, and Nick Foles looks really unathletic, acting like a receiver. And instead of Trey Burton, it was Aguilar, who also didn't look really good throwing the ball. He looked a little bit janky too throwing the ball. But I just love the play. One of the things I'm very surprised at is that we didn't see more Wildcat when it was real popular in the Vic days, sort of, and then people were going to use certain kinds of players to do Wildcat, and people just went to really the standard run and pass. And I'm really surprised we didn't see more, that it was just a fad, that kind of thing wasn't developed more, and you didn't expect more out of your players to do something a little unpredictable, because the Philly special got me twice. I didn't expect it either time. So, very fun. It arguably lit a fire under the Eagles. They played a little better. After that, got the fans back into the game. And, you know, if it did, it did. If it didn't, well, they say it did. So that's what really matters. And it's just a fun thing to watch when that happens, you know. Sometimes you're zoning out just watching the game and you see what just happened, you know. Last thing I want to mention is, you know, the game was for the most part pretty poor. A lot of penalties, a lot of, you know, for most of the game there wasn't that much action. It was like 6-3 for a lot of the game, it felt. But one thing about football is, and you know, this is more true about football than most other sports. There could be games like football that I'm less familiar with, like rugby or Australian rules football, that are like this too. But, you know, when the game's bad and it's slow and it's disgusting, it still creates drama at the end of the game. Just because the scores are so close, and we got that. You know, Philly went in and scored. They took the lead, and then, you know, we got this real drive where Julio Jones caught a bunch of balls and Matt Ryan marched down the field. There were still penalties on it, and, you know, it ended up not working out for Atlanta, but they still got into the red zone and everything. And when a game's low scoring, I'll talk crap about it too, or that it was boring, or I'll go do something else. But in the back of my head, you know, I always know that, you know, I got to be there for, you know, the last half of the fourth quarter at least. You know, if a game's not fun to watch and it's not teams that are my favorite or something, that if you're there in the last half of the fourth quarter, something good's going to happen, because there's desperation plays and people got to do something because time is running out, and you really feel that. And that's what we got at the end of Atlanta, Philadelphia. So what was a bad game? Well, you know, with all the penalties and both teams looking pretty rusty, we did get some great performances. We did get some drama at the end of the game. So overall, I got to say that, you know, the game gets a strong B- just for how it ended. Anyway, that's it for Chaos Daily today. You can find us at Chaotic Sports on Twitter. You can find me personally at Chris Sarda. You can go to chaoticsports.com. And if you're into music and books, movies, comic books, that kind of thing, please go check out notpartofyourscene.com, and especially Not Part of Your Scene on YouTube, where we're doing a few videos. Right now, a lot of comic stuff up there, but we're going to do a few other things. Hey, thank you for listening. This has been Chaos Daily from Chaotic Sports.